What if the ultimate key to handling our crazy modern world wasn't some new app, but a diary? And what if that diary was written almost 2,000 years ago by a Roman emperor sitting on a battlefield? Well, today we're cracking open the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, a set of private notes that somehow became one of the greatest public guides to mastering your own mind. And hey, that's not just me saying it. One of our sources makes this huge claim. This book can, and I quote, quite literally change your life irrevocably for the better. Wow, that's a pretty high bar. So does this ancient text actually deliver on that promise, or is it just, philosophical hype? Let's dig in and find out. And this is really what it all boils down to, isn't it? What on earth was going on in the head of a guy at the absolute peak of power, dealing with stress we can barely imagine, that he needed to write these notes to himself? Let's find out. Okay, let's get into it. To really understand the Meditations, you first have to understand the man and his world, because this philosophy wasn't dreamed up in some peaceful, quiet library. It was forged right in the middle of one crisis after another. I mean, think about it. This guy was basically the most powerful person on the planet. But he was also kind of a reluctant ruler, someone who probably would have preferred the quiet life of a scholar. Duty, though, Duty had other plans for him. And just look at this timeline. It's not just one thing, it's everything all at once. In 161, a war kicks off in the East. 4 years later, while that's still going on, the Antonine Plague hits, a pandemic that would kill millions. The very next year, the northern border collapses. And then, right in the middle of all this chaos, his co-emperor, his own brother, dies. This wasn't just a bad year, we're talking about a solid decade of nonstop disaster. And get this, the pressure wasn't just external. While he's trying to hold the empire together, he's also fighting his own body. He apparently had chronic pain, chest pains, stomach issues. He was physically not a strong guy. So he's fighting wars on two fronts, one outside the empire and one inside himself. So how did he possibly cope with all of that? Well, he turned to philosophy. Not as some, academic thing to debate, but as a practical, real-world set of mental tools, a toolkit for managing his own mind when the world outside was just spinning out of control. Okay, so the foundational tool in this entire kit is what the Stoics called the dichotomy of control. It's a really simple but wow, incredibly profound idea. You just separate everything in life into two buckets, things you can control and things you can't. You can control your thoughts, your reactions, your actions. You can't control a plague, a war, or what other people think of you. Real peace of mind, they said, comes from focusing your energy only on that first bucket. So what does this look like in practice? Let's take a super common problem we all face, dealing with annoying, difficult people. Turns out Marcus struggled with his temper when he was younger, but he developed these specific strategies to get a handle on it. So in his journal, he lists these 10 gifts from Apollo for dealing with anger. We're going to look at 3 of the big ones. First, just remember that we're social creatures. We're built to cooperate, not fight. Second, try not to judge someone by a single frustrating thing they do. Think about their whole character. And third, and this is the absolute key, it's not what they do that makes you angry. It's your judgment about what they do. And that judgment, that's the only thing you actually control. Okay, so that's other people, but what about the stuff that's undeniably real and painful, like his chronic illness? How could philosophy possibly help with actual physical suffering? Well, he used these incredible analogies. He said the pain itself is like a little black spot, but it's our reaction to it, the fear, the frustration, the whole why me narrative that draws these bigger and bigger circles around that spot, making the suffering so much worse. He said we shouldn't build a second story to our sorrow by being sorry for our sorrow. We just have to accept the pain for what it is. And it's this exact idea, this ability to mentally protect yourself from suffering, that makes Stoicism so popular today, and also, as we're about to see, so controversial. And that right there, that powerful mental toolkit is exactly why Stoicism is blowing up right now. But this whole revival brings up a really important question. Is this ancient philosophy a genuine cure for our modern anxieties, or is it just a crutch? In a world that feels, completely out of our control a lot of the time, the idea of retreating into your own mind and just focusing on what you can manage is really, really appealing. It offers a clear path to calm. But some critics are starting to ask if that inward focus comes at a price. if it encourages us to just accept things that we really shouldn't. So the debate really boils down to two camps. On one hand, you have the view that Stoicism is an amazing tool for personal empowerment. It builds resilience, it helps people live a good life no matter what's going on. But on the other hand, some argue it can lead to political apathy. I mean, if you're constantly telling yourself that big societal problems are outside your control, does that just become a fancy excuse to do nothing about them? And this isn't a new critique, by the way. It has deep philosophical roots. The philosopher Hegel argued that this kind of inner freedom gets popular precisely during a time of universal fear and bondage. In other words, are we only turning to Stoicism because we feel totally powerless to change the world around us? It's a really tough question. So where does all this leave us? How can we use these ideas constructively to build our own resilience without just checking out from the world? Well, Marcus himself actually gives us a pretty good model. He didn't just retreat into his own head. I mean, the man was an emperor. He couldn't just check out. He had to engage with people every single day. And his writings give us a kind of blueprint for how to have difficult conversations and healthy debates, which feels more important now than ever. He lays out 3 clear steps. First, your goal isn't to win the argument, it's to find the truth. As he famously wrote, "The truth never harmed anyone." Be ready to change your own mind. Second, be patient. Realize that most people aren't open to changing their views, and that's okay. Your job is either to instruct or endure. And third, when you do speak your truth, do it with kindness and humility. Nobody listens to someone who's being contemptuous. And see, that's the bottom line here. For Marcus, this was never about scoring points in a debate. It was about using every single interaction as a chance to get closer to the truth and to act like a good, rational, social person. Which brings us right back to our big question. In our own lives, when we feel overwhelmed by all the chaos, is Stoicism a shield we use to hide from it all, or is it a sword, a tool that actually allows us to engage with the world and with each other more wisely? The answer, as Marcus would probably tell you, is entirely up to you.